In July 2011, a common law relationship comes to an end, but a piece of personal property, a digital camera, is left behind in a condominium. When Dr. Joy Margate Lee reviews the contents of that camera, she discovers an explicit sex video involving her former partner, Police Superintendent Neri Ilagan, and another woman. Ilagan confronts Lee at his office the following month to demand the camera back. She refuses. During the ensuing altercation, Ilagan alleges Lee physically assaults him, slamming his head against a wall. Ilagan counters with a severe legal mechanism, arguing that his rights to life, liberty, and security are under active threat from Lee's possession of the video. He files a petition for a writ of habeas data. Initially, the strategy works. The regional trial court in Quezon City sides with Ilagan, issuing a directive that requires Lee to surrender the camera, the memory card, and all copies of the video. Looking at the trial court's directive from the case digest, the RTC explicitly ordered the production of the camera and the original or negative of the video, compelling Lee to file a verified return. At this stage of the litigation, a trial court determined that keeping and reproducing explicit digital data without consent was a severe enough breach of privacy to trigger an extraordinary constitutional safeguard. The case inevitably moves up to the highest judicial tribunal in the Philippines, but the Supreme Court delivers a total reversal. They set aside the RTC's decision and dismiss Ilagan's petition entirely for lack of merit. Why would the highest court deny relief to someone whose highly sensitive personal data was kept and copied against his will? The ruling establishes a hard boundary in privacy law. A severe breach of privacy, on its own, does not automatically guarantee a remedy under the rule on the writ of habeas data. The Supreme Court dismantled the lower court's ruling by exposing two structural failures in Ilagan's case, a failure of pleading and a failure of evidentiary proof. Analyzing these two specific pillars defines the high jurisdictional bar required for digital privacy litigation. In this instance, the sensational nature of the privacy breach was secondary to the mechanical requirements of the rule on habeas data. To understand the first failure, we have to define exactly what habeas data is designed to do. Under AM number 08-11-16-SC, the writ specifically targets unlawful acts of gathering, collecting, or storing personal data. The doctrine requires that a privacy violation must threaten the petitioner's life, liberty, or security. This nexus requirement means a petitioner cannot just claim a privacy violation. They must definitively link the invasion to a threat against those core rights. Because it is an extraordinary remedy, the rule will not issue to protect purely property interests or commercial concerns. The legal architecture demands a direct chain of cause and effect. A proven act of data gathering must serve as the direct cause, threatening life, liberty, or security. When the court applied this standard to Ilagan's initial pleading, they found a void. He claimed his privacy was violated, but failed to allege exactly how the reproduction threatened his life or liberty. Without that direct link, his claims were entirely speculative. A generalized claim of a privacy violation is jurisdictionally fatal. If you cannot articulate a concrete nexus to constitutional rights, the petition fails before it even begins. Ilagan's core argument relied on a profound anxiety. He argued the highly sensitive material could easily be subjected to public internet dissemination. He specifically worried that the video might end up uploaded online or sold as bootleg copies in physical public markets like Quiapo. The Supreme Court categorically classified this fear as purely speculative. It did not satisfy the rigorous legal requirements for the writ. The law draws a strict line between a generalized worry about a hypothetical future and a concrete, actionable threat grounded in overt acts. Extraordinary judicial relief stays dormant when faced with hypothetical anxieties. It only activates in the presence of actionable, imminent threats. Even if we look past the flaws in the initial pleading, a petitioner still faces a heavy burden of proof once inside the courtroom. The Supreme Court applied the evidentiary threshold of substantial evidence. This demands more than a mere scintilla, requiring a level of proof that a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. When the court evaluated Ilagan's submitted evidence against this heavy standard, the record came up entirely short. The critical weakness in Ilagan's case was that his entire evidentiary record consisted exclusively of his own uncorroborated, self-serving testimony. He provided no objective proof, no overt acts, no third-party witnesses, showing that Dr. Lee had an imminent plan to disseminate the video to the public. Without objective corroboration of an imminent threat, self-serving statements carry no legal weight, causing the evidentiary pillar of any habeas data claim to inevitably collapse. The final blow to the petition came from Dr. Lee's own defense. She never denied having the file. She openly admitted to keeping the memory card and reproducing the video. But her intent provided a legitimate reason. She reproduced the data strictly to secure evidence for two formal legal complaints she filed against Ilagan. The first was a criminal complaint for the violation of Republic Act No. 9262, filed before the Makati City prosecutor. The second was an administrative complaint for grave misconduct, filed before the National Police Commission. The court maps a critical divergence here. There is a massive legal distinction between unlawful public dissemination and lawful evidentiary submission. By submitting the data strictly within recognized legal tribunals, Lee provided a completely non-malicious explanation for retaining the file. The legal consequence is absolute. Lee's lawful intent to use the video as evidence actively negates the required element of an unlawful or threatening intent under the habeas data rule. Intention dictates legality. Using sensitive data defensively within authorized legal channels is a protected act and cannot be weaponized as an actionable privacy violation. Ultimately, the Supreme Court completely reversed the trial court's decision and dismissed Ilagan's petition based on two structural flaws. First, a failure of pleading. The petitioner failed to demonstrate a direct nexus between the data retention and an actual threat to his life, liberty, or security. Second, a failure of proof. The petitioner failed to provide substantial, corroborated evidence of an imminent threat, relying entirely on self-serving testimony. This decision draws a definitive boundary at the intersection of digital privacy rights and adversarial litigation. Retaining sensitive data to seek judicial redress effectively shields the holder from the writ's reach.